Hey everybody, welcome to our next episode of Two Dads, One Car. I'm so excited to have our very next guest with me. He is a good friend of mine. I've known him for many, many years, even in Vancouver, back in Calgary. His name's Kyle Lowe. That's right, Mr. Kyle Lowe. He recently had his son earlier this year along with Natasha Jung. It's going to be such a pleasure to interview him on this podcast and really see what goes on behind the scenes. And so stay tuned. I'm going to get him right now at a dim sum restaurant. He took a friend out to Sun Soi Wah, which is one of the most, I don't know, Kyle, it's one of the most touristy restaurants in Vancouver, but whatever floats your boat. And we'll see him in just a bit. Stay tuned. Let's go. Let's rock this. Thanks for watching. Is this your first time?
First time, yeah.
Look at this.
First time in the front seat of the Tesla.
All right, so I did a brief intro of you earlier on. Maybe you could talk to the audience, kind of.
Should I be looking at the camera? Should I be looking at you? Should I be looking at the road?
Maybe look at the road.
Yeah.
There's no camera here. It's a fake camera.
Oh, it's a fake camera. My name is Kyle Lowe. I am a father of a almost 5-month-old. His name is Ethan. He was born March 30th, and he's a joy.
You and I live pretty close to each other, so I'm sure we'll be doing our dad walks.
We are neighbors. We will find opportunities to enjoy parenthood together.
So what's been like the biggest shift, aside from sleep? I'm sure sleep is probably the big one, but...
The biggest shift, I think, is the schedule. So when you become a parent, you really don't own your life anymore.
Yeah.
So with Natasha, my wife, and I, we really have to communicate, coordinate, and share the responsibility. Both of us are quite kind of independent. So before Ethan, we would kind of do our own thing a lot of times with each other as well. But with Ethan, obviously, one of us has to always be with him. So I think the biggest shift is just really ironing out that communication and making sure, Ethan is well taken care of while we still want to pursue things that we need to pursue to maintain our sanity.
So does Ethan have a Google Calendar?
He just got Instagram, so he's there. It's Ethan's Epic Adventures. We're looking for followers. Natasha and I have a shared calendar, and we schedule around that. And I'm sure Ethan, when he's old enough to get online, he's going to be part of that family calendar.
It reminds me of a story when you shared about how when you and Natasha first met, I think you guys asked to share each other's calendars.
Yeah, Natasha is just always... She's got a lot going on, and much like yourself. So being respectful over time, I wanted to make sure that we found time together that works for her. So I think now with Ethan, it's just really an extension of that cadence. And we also have a dog. So I would say that the dog was a practice child. In that with a dog, you have to also have a schedule. You have to make sure you're around to care, love, and feed it. And, in many ways, a newborn human is just a much needier puppy. So if anyone has a dog, it's a good, or a cat, it's a good starter kid.
Or just go straight into it, I guess. But
or like yourself, you and Michelle, you can just jump right in and you'll find a way.
And sink or tread water. Well, I do have to acknowledge that I'm thrilled that you actually said yes to doing this podcast. I thought your yes was like a yes but a no.
There was plenty of remorse when I said yes, but here I am.
Because I'm sure you get is this your first podcast?
Yes. I listen to podcasts, but I don't participate.
Well,
so thank you for including me in this experiment.
Well, thanks for being open into it. And
my suspicion here, Steve, is you just didn't want to read any books on taking care of a kid, so you're just spending time with dads to distill everything you need to know succinctly.
That is exactly it.
Is that it? Oh, there you go. Work smart, not hard.
Exposed right there. Like, what are the resources out there? Just to let me know, and how much of that is true myth, reality? Like, what part of that stuck with you? Maybe help me distill down what I need to look into.
I think the prenatal classes are a good foundation just to figure out what the heck a newborn needs. And those are good resources that, especially with the pandemic, are readily available online. Um, but I think a lot of it is learning as you go. So once you have the foundation right of how to change a diaper, what does good feeding look like? What's the if you formula feed, what does that look like? Breastfeeding, bottle feeding. So once you have that down, a lot of it is just learning as you go. And I think like anything, you just Google just in time as you need it. There are plenty of books and Instagram accounts, and I've relied on my sister a lot, who also has a young son, a few months older than Ethan, and just learning from her what worked and what she would do differently. I think was how I learned quickly. So much like how you're doing this podcast and you're having conversations with people, I think that's one of the best ways to enable yourself on what being a parent is like in practice.
Yeah, because I think about like back in the day before technology. I mean, when people look for parenting advices from the community, from the village, from the
Mm-hmm.
relatives around them. And so hopefully it's like one replication of going back in the past with this series. But when you're talking to sister, what are the things that she shared?
So just like a comment on that, I think
Yeah.
there's so much information online, and just like how we ask friends for food recommendations or travel recommendations, we trust our network, and very much that's been my experience as a new parent. I think with her son Henry, he's also a boy, older but different than Ethan. So although they're similar in some ways, he's a little bit more rowdy than Ethan, and he has a different sleep pattern. So it wasn't a replication of everything that my sister did. I just copied, but I think one of the biggest lessons was just kind of taking everything in stride, and there are having plenty of parents before us, and so if there are ever moments where maybe I feel overwhelmed, I'm confident that I'll get through it, because many have done so before me, as has my sister.
Mm-hmm. And this must be early on in the stages, right? But do you find that the way your parents parented you are going to affect the way you're parenting Ethan? I mean, sure, Ethan is still not mobile much and not speaking much yet, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's my parents had my sister and I. Mat leave was only 3 months, right? So I can't even imagine what it'd be like bringing Ethan to daycare at this age. So I think right off the bat, we have the privilege of spending more time in these formative years with Ethan. I think another big generational difference is millennial fathers are a little bit more high touch with their kids, and not to generalize, but myself and I know other parents who or my friend network, who are fathers, are also very involved in raising their children. And I would say that's kind of a big difference between myself and maybe my parents, where a lot of parenting was done by my mom. And I think that's just a timing and generational difference, and I think it's a great difference.
you bring up a really good point, really on the high touch, and I didn't think about that until you mentioned it now, which is the point of this podcast. Learning a lot about the generational differences. When it comes to, I mean, there's so many, and I know you and I talked about this before, there's so many books and philosophies, but at the end of the day, it sounds like you just kind of have to figure it out when it happens.
Don't feel pressured, Steve, to read everything you need to read about in being a father. I think a lot of it, so I mean, some of it is instinct, right? It's just, obviously you're not gonna be too rough with a baby, and changing a baby will make sense after you do it a few times. Swallowing a baby will make sense after you do it a few times. So a lot of it will just be practice and instinct, and some learning on the fly.
My sense that there's some unspoken truths, unspoken realities, and one of it is actually the effect of a baby on relationships. You and Natasha are so communicative, and you guys seem to have a really good system going. But I'm sure there's a learning journey to get to that point today. What was that learning journey like, or was there any surprises? Trick question.
I think knowing that Natasha will probably listen to this, obviously very intelligent with how I respond.
Like a lawyer.
Well, a little bit more honest than that.
I'll let you get that one.
Oh, there's churches. As I said, I think having the dog. Oh, they're closed. Having the dog was a good first step because we had to just learn how to communicate schedules and training patterns and what are maybe behaviors that we need to be cognizant of and we need to address. So just having that open communication pattern is kind of step number one. And I think kind of to add to that, just being respectful of each other's time. And so what I mean by that is, I think, and I sometimes may fall into this trap where, Natasha is on maternity leave, and maybe sometimes I assume she'll always be looking after Ethan while I'm at leave, but that's a full-time job and it's exhausting. So I think it's important to be respectful that she needs hours or time away to do her own thing. And so building that into our schedules where I am watching Ethan for part of the day or an afternoon or a weekend, picking up more chores so that that's not something that Natasha has to worry about. By that same token, she also realizes that I don't always have to be home because I also have a life too. So, as you know, we play tennis and we hang out. And as long as I communicate with Natasha that that's what's going to happen, she's usually pretty okay with it. And I think that balance gives us good integration of being parents, but also still being our own selves.
I get the sense that there's a lot of pressure from moms always comparing, do you have the right tools, the right gear, the right shoes? I don't know. There seems to be some kind of pressure to be perfect mothers. Is there that same pressure on fathers, or what are any comments on that just in general?
I think you don't want to screw up. I think in general there's less pressure on fathers than mothers. I think a lot of that is just historical norms, right? Mm-hmm. People still assume if a mom is not with their kid, is that frowned upon, and so those are barriers that I think need to be addressed. But no, I personally don't feel pressure to compare Ethan with other kids, but he's also only 4 months, so yeah. He's a potato, right? Like he just kind of lies there and squirms around and gets his feet licked by our dog Bulba. So, is that going to change as he gets older? And will my competitive spirit want him to be the best at everything that he can be? Maybe, who knows? Or maybe when your daughter comes along, and all of a sudden, Ethan has someone to compete with, and maybe I will be a little more competitive. But, right now, we're grateful that we can provide for Ethan. We have a good family and social network, and, as long as I think we feel that he's taken care of and loved, we feel pretty good about how we're parenting him.
So you're not going to make him into you're not going to be a tennis dad for the next...
when we play tennis at Queenie and we see those kids play, I look forward to the day when Ethan can get enrolled in some of those courses.
Walk me through, if you can, the moment, the first time you held Ethan. There's a lot of, stuff on the media it's the most best thing ever, life changes, rainbows and sunshines appear. You and I are pretty realistic people in that sense, but there must have been something that came about. What was that like?
Yeah, so Ethan, you do the sensor trick. So we're making a left turn, and as you know, on Vancouver roads there are sensors, and if there are 3 cars, you'll get the green light, go ahead. For the left-hand turn, so Steve is playing the sensor trick here. Ethan was an unplanned C-section, and so we were waiting, or we were at the hospital, and Natasha was in labor for hours and hours and hours. And at a certain point, the surgeon, physician was like, "It's going to be a C-section." And so from waiting hours and hours and hours to within 20 minutes, we met Ethan. It was surreal in that it just happened real quick. Now the funny story is, I didn't know that emergency C-section was going to be called, so I actually DoorDashed a meal, and I was slightly disappointed that the physician made the decision, 10 minutes before my DoorDash order was going to arrive, because I really wanted to eat that. So, part of me wanted to ask him to wait, but I knew better. So, C-section baby, there's a barrier, there's Natasha, and then there's a bunch of surgeons doing their magic. And within moments, they extracted Ethan. And
I saw that in a prenatal class.
And he was handed to us, and then we saw him. And yeah, it was surreal, and it was just you just want to meet this little thing for so long, and you finally do. But I'm also very squeamish around blood, so there's a bunch of blood in the backdrop. So that kind of, maybe took a little bit from the experience. But it was phenomenal to meet him. And then we had, you have skin to skin between mother and child for some time, and that I know that was very special for Natasha. And then you spend a couple of days in the hospital, and you just get to know the baby. You learn some basics around swaddling and nursing and feeding the baby, and you get to know him or her better. And it's just amazing. But I gotta say, as amazing as that was, a 1 week old doesn't really do anything. Right? So 1 week old this is survival mode, where you are just learning to be a parent, and you're feeding the baby, changing the baby, tending to the baby. Where it's gotten really fun is, I think, month 3.5 onwards, where he's responding, he's smiling, he's enjoying our company, he's starting to interact with our dog and each other and us, and all of a sudden playtime is playtime now. It's not just feeding the baby and changing the baby. And so why do I say that? I say that because every moment is special. The moment we first met Ethan, but also all the stages as he develops and we learn to be parents. It's all very memorable. So, there's no period we would ever want to fast track, because it's all been so great.
What's been the exciting part of this stage? You kind of mentioned smiling and playing with Boba, his dog.
So right now he's kind of on a schedule where he's down. He sleeps at 7 p.m. Wakes up around midnight for a feed, and then wakes up again maybe around 5 a.m. For the day, 6 a.m. So I get to spend maybe 2 to 3 hours with him in the morning, feed him, change him, play with him. We go for a nice walk with Boba. And just those kind of hours together, where we're just hanging out, I think are the best part of my day right now.
Love it. So that's why we're not doing tennis in the mornings. It's really these walks.
I had to choose Ethan over you. It was a very easy choice.
Well, I guess we'll have to do evening tennis.
We'll have to do evening tennis, yeah.
Well, we're about to go into our drive-through break here. So any particular orders that speak to you from churches here?
If I were a hungry person right now, it would be usually a 10-piece meal, but I can't say I'm that person right now. What's your go-to? What do you and Michelle want?
I'm gonna take a look at the menu. See what there is. All right, we're gonna take a chicken break.
Hi, welcome to churches. How may I help?
Can I get 5 tenders, please?
5 tenders?
How about you?
I'm fine.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. We grabbed the fried chicken. We're going to dive into really the last topic I had, and it's a good segue because we're talking about career. As fathers, like, maybe, I don't mean to generalize, but there is an aspect of career being the traditional views, of men being like, the career providers, the finance providers, which is very traditional back in the day. What are your thoughts on when it comes to fatherhood and career, and does it shape, the careers you're looking for? Yeah.
I think it depends on if you are the sole provider or not. If you are the sole provider, there probably is more pressure to make as much money as you can, to provide financially for your family. But I also think that one values your time more when you're a parent, or you value your time more as a parent because you could be spending time with your child, or you could be working, and usually the former is a lot more interesting. So I think the whole notion of work life balance or work life integration, where if one can find a career that gives you the ability to balance a meaningful career that provides for you and your family financially, as well as the time that you want to spend with your family, that's kind of the perfect balance. So do I feel pressure to provide more to my family? No, but I do feel pressure, not pressured, but I want to spend more time with my family, and I want a career that kind of gives me that healthy balance. Natasha, if you want to work and you want to let me stay home, that's cool. We can chat about that.
Yeah, you could be a tennis coach soon or something.
I could be a tier 4 tennis coach.
I love it because it talks about this is really talking about shifting of roles, right? And the beauty of the podcast. And I'd love to bring on a father who might be the sole caregiver in that kind of relationship, and it really depends on the relationship with your partner. And there's very many variances behind it.
Exactly. It's there's not. I don't think there's a one size fits model, but there are different situations that work, or different arrangements that work for different people, and that's the beauty of the partnership.
Very last question before we wrap it up. Let's say Ethan listens to this podcast when he's 6 years old, 7, maybe 8. Any message you want to say to him that assuming this podcast takes off?
Oh yeah, right.
What would you want to say to him in the camera, or to me, or whatever? You can pretend.
Oh, this is the tough question. Okay, so the question is Ethan, when you're old enough to listen to this podcast, what's my message to you? I think my message to you would be, we've only known you for 5 months. You're 5 months old now, but we love you a lot in that time, and we are so happy to be your parents. You bring us so much joy and happiness, and we look forward to all of the special moments that we will share with you. And I hope that you feel the same way, about us, and you look forward to spending time with us. And we love you. That's all that's all I have to say to you right now. But more will be said as you get older, my son.
Oh, tears coming out my eyes right here. Well, thank you, Kyle, for being on the show. Thank you all for listening in. It's been such a pleasure chatting with Kyle, learning the deeper side of what it's like behind the scenes. And thanks for being on your very first podcast and first interview like this.
Yeah, thanks for making it painless.
Well, to listen to more episodes, check us out on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts or videos. Stay tuned for the rest of season 1, and we'll chat with you all later. All right, that was a bad ending, but whatever. Cheers. Bye-bye.